It was early morning on Mars when Dr. Nathan Rowan stepped outside his research outpost. The clock had just struck 6. The sky above the Olympus highlands glowed with a pale red light. The air smelled fresh, with pine and damp soil from the terraformed forest that had taken root across the slopes. He rubbed his tired eyes and pulled his worn jacket tighter. Nathan had lived alone at this station for years. Once a xenobiologist, now a quiet writer. He had chosen solitude over the chaos of human settlements. Each day followed a routine. Wake up, make coffee, write a few chapters. Walk the forest trails, sleep, repeat. It was predictable, almost dull, yet strangely comforting. But on this morning, everything changed. As Nathan yawned and stretched, his boots crunching on the frosted ground, he froze in place. Standing only a few steps from his porch was a massive dragon. The creature's scales shone silver under the rising sun. Its body was powerful, yet trembling, as though every muscle ached from exhaustion. Heavy breaths filled the air, leaving white clouds in the cold morning light. Nathan's instincts screamed at him to run back inside, grab the pulse rifle on the wall, and lock the door. But something about the scene stopped him. The dragon was not threatening him. It did not roar or lunge forward. Instead, its eyes glistened with tears. They streamed down its face in steady lines, falling onto the wooden boards of the porch. Nathan's breath caught. In all his years of studying life on Mars, he had never seen a creature cry. Then he saw it. Clutched gently in the dragon's jaws was a small hatchling. The youngling's body hung limp, wings bent awkwardly, head tilted to one side. It looked lifeless, like a broken doll. Nathan's chest tightened. This was not a monster's arrival. This was a mother in despair. The dragon lowered her head with deliberate care. She placed the hatchling on the porch, right at Nathan's feet, and then stepped back. Her massive form lowered onto her haunches, eyes fixed on him. The look was not one of rage, but of pleading, a silent request too human to ignore. His pulse hammered. Every survival instinct told him to slam the door shut, yet his heart whispered something different. He could see the raw grief in her trembling body. She was not here to destroy. She was here because she had no other choice. "What do you want from me?" he muttered, his voice shaky. The mother dragon blinked slowly, her gaze locked on him. He felt as though she understood. Nathan dropped to his knees beside the small hatchling. Its tiny chest quivered faintly. It was still alive. The faint spark of life stirred a sudden rush of determination in him. He looked back at the mother. She did not move. She simply waited. The silence of the highlands wrapped around them. The only sound was the weak rasp of the young dragon trying to breathe. Nathan swallowed hard. "All right," he whispered, though he was speaking to himself as much as to the dragon. I'll try to help." The words left his mouth before he realized it, and when he said them, something shifted. The mother dragon's breathing steadied. She lowered her head further, as if acknowledging his decision. His hands shook as he wrapped the hatchling in his flannel shirt. The warmth of the small body pressed against him, fragile and cold. Nathan stood slowly, every step deliberate. He expected the mother to roar or lash out, but she remained still. She was trusting him. He walked back into the outpost, heart thundering in his chest. The wooden door closed softly behind him. Outside, the mother dragon remained where she was, her shadow long against the trees, her eyes fixed on the house. Inside, Nathan placed the small dragon on a folded blanket. Its scales shimmered faintly under the dim lights of the cabin. One wing was bent, blood crusted along its side. The sight made him shiver. He grabbed towels, heating pads, and bottles of water. He had no training for this, no guidebook for saving an injured creature that should not even be near humans. He only had instinct. As he worked, he kept glancing at the window. The mother dragon sat in the clearing, her massive form unmoving, like a statue carved from silver stone. Her eyes never left his home. Nathan's thoughts spiraled. What had brought her here? Why had she chosen him? Had she been watching him from the forest all this time? None of it made sense. But as he looked down at the small dragonling trembling on his couch, sense no longer mattered. Only action did. He pressed a warm cloth against its side, whispering softly, though he doubted it could hear him. "You're safe. Just stay with me." The hatchling's chest rose faintly. Nathan felt a flicker of hope. Outside, the mother dragon lowered her head onto her forearms, her body still trembling, but her eyes steady. The highlands had always been silent and still for Nathan Rowan, but on this morning, that silence carried a new weight. It was not emptiness anymore. It was trust. He realized the moment would mark the beginning of something larger than his isolation. He was no longer alone. A bond had been offered to him, fragile yet powerful. And now, with the life of a dragon in his hands, he knew there was no turning back. Inside the quiet outpost, Dr. Nathan Rowan worked quickly, his heart still racing from the moment he carried the dragon hatchling inside. The small creature lay limp on the folded blanket, its scales faintly shimmering under the dim cabin light. It looked so fragile, so close to slipping away, that Nathan felt fear knotting inside his chest. He touched the dragonling's side with trembling fingers. Its skin was cold. Its breaths were shallow, faint, almost invisible. For a moment, he thought he had been too late. But then, he noticed the tiniest flicker of movement in its chest. A fragile heartbeat was still there. Nathan grabbed supplies without thinking. Old towels, a heating pad, bottles of water, anything he believed might help. He knew he was no healer, no expert in caring for dragons, but instinct pushed him to try. He wrapped the hatchling gently, creating a pocket of warmth, and whispered softly as though the small creature might hear him. Outside, through the cabin window, he saw the mother dragon still sitting in the clearing. Her enormous body was motionless, but her eyes were locked on the house. It was as though she was waiting to see what he would do. Her trust both terrified him and gave him strength. "You chose me for a reason," he murmured, "so I'll try." He lifted the hatchling into his arms, cradling it like something far too delicate for this world. Its wing bent at an unnatural angle, and a wound along its side leaked a faint trace of blood. Nathan pressed a clean cloth against it, his hands shaking with worry. Desperate for guidance, he activated his comm unit. There was only one person he trusted to answer. "Leah," he said, voice low and urgent. "It's Nathan. I need your help." A long pause followed. Then a tired female voice replied. "Nathan, do you know what time it is? What's the emergency?" "It's real. I'm not joking. I have a dragon hatchling. It's injured and I don't know how to keep it alive." There was silence on the line, then a sharp sigh. "A dragon? Are you serious?" "Please, I don't have time to explain. It's dying. Tell me what to do." Dr. Leah Merton, a medic with field experience in wildlife care, did not argue further. Her tone shifted to calm and professional. "First, keep it warm. Check for bleeding. Don't give solid food. Try sugar water or honey water. Drops only. Too much could choke it. Do you have a syringe or dropper? Nathan looked around and found an old cooking syringe in the kitchen drawer. He mixed warm water with honey in a jar. Then, kneeling beside the hatchling, he slowly let a few drops touch its mouth. For long seconds, there was no response. Then, the small tongue twitched. The dragonling swallowed faintly. Nathan's breath caught. That's it. Stay with me. Fight. Hope returned. It was fragile, but real. He continued, drop by drop, whispering encouragement. Outside, the mother dragon shifted, her massive head lifting, as if she sensed the change. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, focused only on the small cabin. Leah's voice came again. I'll contact Caleb. He used to run a wildlife rehab center. We'll come as soon as possible. Hold on until then. Thank you, Nathan said before ending the call. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. Minutes felt like hours as he stayed beside the young dragon. He kept its body wrapped in warmth, added more honey water, and gently cleaned its wound with damp cloths. His hands were clumsy, but his heart guided him. He talked to it quietly, sometimes humming, sometimes swearing at his own helplessness. Every small twitch of the creature's body gave him strength, and every silence threatened to break him. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows through the window. Still the mother dragon waited outside, never moving closer, never leaving. It was as though the forest itself was holding its breath. By midday, the dragonling stirred. One claw twitched faintly. Its chest rose deeper with each breath. Nathan laughed aloud, a sound filled with relief, and tears blurred his vision. You're still here, he whispered. You're not leaving me today. Hours later, a rover approached from the distance. Dust lifted into the air as two figures stepped out. Leah entered the cabin quickly, her eyes widening at the sight of the dragonling. Dear God, she said, you weren't lying. Behind her, Dr. Caleb Vera examined the creature with careful hands. He frowned but nodded. It's alive. This wound is a bite, likely from another dragon. Males sometimes kill hatchlings that aren't their own during mating season. It was lucky its mother saved it. Nathan listened, stunned. So she brought him here because she thought I could help? Maybe, Caleb said, his voice low. Maybe she's been watching you, judging you, and decided you were the one to trust. The thought unsettled Nathan. But as he looked through the window at the mother dragon's shadow waiting beyond the trees, he realized it was true. They worked together for hours. Caleb treated the wound with antibiotics, rehydrated the small body, and adjusted the wing. Leah monitored its breathing. Nathan stayed close, whispering comfort, his hands never far. When the work was done, the dragonling's breathing had steadied. Its tiny body no longer felt like cold stone. There was warmth now. There was life. As the evening shadows lengthened, Caleb packed his supplies. We'll leave instructions and medicine, but remember, this creature belongs in the wild. Once it's strong, it must return. Nathan nodded, though inside his heart ached. He had only just begun to feel the fragile heartbeat under his care. After they left, silence filled the cabin again. The hatchling lay curled in blankets, breathing softly. Nathan sat close, staring through the window at the watchful mother. He whispered to himself, almost afraid to believe, "We have a chance. You're not gone yet." And in that quiet moment, the bond between man and dragon grew stronger, bound by trust, survival, and the fragile heartbeat of a life not yet finished. The days turned into weeks as Nathan Rowan cared for the fragile dragonling. He had named the little one Ember, though he often reminded himself that naming a wild creature was dangerous for the heart. Yet the name came naturally. Ember was small, but carried a spark of life that refused to fade. Each day, that spark grew brighter. Ember's wounds healed quickly under careful treatment. The deep gash along his side closed into a scar. The bent wings slowly regained strength. Within days, he was moving clumsily across the cabin floor. Within weeks, he was climbing onto chairs, testing his balance, and even making short, uncertain glides from one piece of furniture to another. His red and silver scales shimmered under the cabin lights, reflecting fire in every shade. Nathan watched with a mixture of wonder and dread. Each laugh Ember pulled from him was followed by the sharp reminder that this joy could not last. The mother dragon visited daily, her enormous shadow appearing at the forest edge near the cabin. Sometimes she came closer, watching through the window. Sometimes she accepted food Nathan left outside, but she never crossed the boundary. She waited. Nathan often stood on the porch, staring at her across the clearing. Their eyes would meet, and though no words were exchanged, the silent understanding between them deepened. She knew her child was healing. She knew Nathan had not betrayed the fragile trust she had placed in him that first morning. But not everyone saw it that way. One late afternoon, as Ember tested his wings across the couch, a rover approached. Dust rose from the trail. Nathan felt a chill when he saw the emblem of the Colonial Wildlife Bureau. Ranger Sophia Lark stepped out, her uniform marked with the crest of Mars Security. Her sharp eyes scanned the clearing and then settled on the cabin. Nathan stepped outside to meet her. Sophia did not waste time on greetings. "Dr. Rowan," she said firmly, "we've had reports of a hatchling being kept at your station, and that its mother has been staying nearby. Is it true?" Nathan hesitated, but knew denial was useless. "It's true," he admitted. "She brought him here, half dead. I've been caring for him." Sophia's expression did not change. "Then we have a problem. Wildlife Control already knows. They intend to come in 3 days. They will remove the hatchling and relocate the mother if necessary. The situation is considered unsafe." The words cut deeper than Nathan expected. "Relocate?" he repeated quietly. "You mean drive them away?" Sophia crossed her arms. "You know the rules. Dragons are unpredictable. A hatchling raised in a human home could become a danger later. You can't keep him. This isn't a pet. This is a wild predator." Nathan clenched his fists. He wanted to argue, to shout that Ember was more than rules or fear. But he looked through the window and saw the hatchling curled on the couch, watching him with bright eyes. And he knew Sophia was right about one thing. Ember could never belong to him. That night, Nathan could not sleep. He sat beside Ember, watching the small creature breathe softly. Ember shifted, pressing closer to his side, and a deep ache filled Nathan's chest. He had never asked for this bond, yet it had changed him completely. As dawn broke, Nathan reached his decision. He would not let Wildlife Control take Ember. He would not let strangers separate the hatchling from his mother or force them into captivity. If Ember was to return to the wild, it would be because Nathan set him free. The next morning, he began to prepare. He found a large container and lined it with Ember's familiar blankets. He added a small stress ball, the toy Ember had chewed and tossed around endlessly. He packed food that the hatchling had grown used to eating. Each step felt like tearing away a piece of himself, but he forced his hands to keep moving. Outside, the mother dragon appeared again at the forest edge. Her eyes glowed faintly in the morning light. Nathan felt as though she already knew what he was planning. He lifted Ember gently and placed him inside the container. The hatchling tilted his head in confusion, wings flicking nervously. Nathan stroked the small scales on his head. "We're going for a ride," he whispered, "to the place where you belong." He loaded the container into his rover and started the engine. The sound startled Ember, but Nathan spoke softly, calming him as best he could. The mother dragon watched as the vehicle rolled away. She did not move, only raised her head and followed with her gaze. The journey into the highlands was long and quiet. The pine forests thickened, the ground rising in ridges of crimson stone. Nathan drove carefully, searching for a place that felt right. Eventually, he reached a clearing surrounded by trees, a place where sunlight filtered through in golden streams. He stopped the rover and climbed out. For a long moment, he stood in silence, breathing the sharp air. He opened the container. Ember blinked at the light, sniffing at the sense of soil and pine. "This is your true home," Nathan said softly. His voice trembled. "Not my cabin, not the couch. Here, with her, with the forest." Ember crawled out slowly, claws scratching the ground. He took a few hesitant steps, then turned back toward Nathan, chirping faintly. Nathan's throat tightened. He knelt, pressing his hand against Ember's side one last time. "You're stronger now. You're meant for more than walls and blankets. Go live as you were born to live." As he spoke, the branches at the edge of the clearing cracked. The mother dragon stepped into view, her silver scales glinting under the light. Her eyes locked on Ember and then on Nathan. She did not move closer, waiting to see what choice her child would make. Ember looked between them, torn between two worlds. Nathan's heart nearly broke at the sight, but he knew the decision had already been made. He stood back, giving Ember the space to choose. The little dragon chirped once more, then turned toward his mother. Step by step, he moved into the clearing. Nathan closed his eyes for a moment, forcing back the wave of grief. He had done what needed to be done. Ember was no longer his. Ember was free. Nathan Rowan stood in the forest clearing, his heart pounding as he watched the small dragonling take cautious steps toward its mother. The morning light filtered through the pine trees, casting long golden streaks across the ground. The air felt heavy with silence, broken only by the faint rustle of wings and the creak of branches swaying in the wind. Ember, the dragonling he had cared for, paused between Nathan and the mother dragon. His head turned back and forth, as though torn between the warmth of the cabin life he had known and the untamed call of the wilderness waiting ahead. Nathan's throat tightened. He wanted to call out, to beg him to stay. But deep inside, he knew this moment was not his to control. The mother dragon lowered her head, releasing a soft rumble that echoed through the clearing. ... That was not a growl of warning, but a sound of welcome, a call only her young would understand. Ember twitched his wings and moved forward a few more steps, his claws sinking into the soil. Then, just before reaching her, Ember stopped. With a quick bound, he turned and ran back to Nathan, pressing his small head against the man's knee. The gesture nearly broke Nathan's resolve. His hand rested on the smooth scales, feeling the warmth of life that only weeks before had been so fragile and near to fading. "Thank you," Nathan whispered, his voice shaking. "You've given me more than I ever imagined, but now you must go." He stroked Ember one last time and gently nudged him forward. The dragonling hesitated, but then turned again to his mother. This time, he did not look back until he reached her side. The great dragon sniffed him from head to tail, making sure he was whole and alive. Then she lifted her head and locked eyes with Nathan. Days passed, then weeks. The cabin grew quiet again. Nathan cleared away the blankets, toys, and bowls that had filled his small home during Ember's stay. He placed them in a box and stored it in the attic, unable to throw them away. The space felt larger now, colder, but also full of memory. Still, Nathan never forgot the bond. Every evening he sat on the porch, sipping tea, his gaze fixed on the edge of the forest. Sometimes, the shadows seemed to move. Sometimes he thought he saw glints of silver or red among the trees. He wondered if they were watching, keeping their distance, but never forgetting. Then, one autumn morning, he opened his door and stopped. On the porch lay a small pile of crimson crystals. They sparkled faintly in the early light, each one rare and found only in the deepest caves of Mars. Nathan bent down, picking one up carefully. It was warm to the touch. He smiled. There was no doubt where it had come from. That became the beginning of a new ritual. Every autumn, when the terraform leaves turned shades of gold and red, new gifts appeared on his porch. Sometimes crystals, sometimes stones shaped with perfect spirals. Once, a fossil from ancient Martian seas. Each one carefully placed. Each one carrying a silent message. We remember. We are grateful. Months turned into a year. Then one day, as Nathan sat writing on his porch, movement caught his eye. At the edge of the clearing, the mother dragon appeared once more. She was not alone. Beside her stood Ember, no longer small. He was nearly half her size, his wings strong and scales glowing brightly in the sunlight. Two younger dragonlings hovered behind them, cautious but curious. Nathan's breath caught. He rose to his feet, stunned by the sight. Ember stepped forward, his eyes locking with Nathan's. Then, with surprising grace, Ember lifted one clawed foot and waved it in a slow, deliberate motion. Dot. Nathan laughed softly, though tears stung his eyes. He raised his own hand and waved back. The mother dragon released a low purring sound that filled the clearing with a strange calm. Then as one, the family turned and retreated into the trees. Yet they did not vanish entirely. They lingered just beyond sight, watching. Nathan went back inside and returned with a small wooden carving of a dragon he had made during the long winter nights. He placed it at the edge of his porch as an offering of his own. Before long, a small stone landed at his feet. He picked it up, finding it glowing faintly from within, its light soft and steady. Ember's gift. Nathan pressed it to his chest, whispering words he knew they could never understand, but might somehow feel. Thank you for trusting me, for changing me. In that moment, he realized the bond they shared had become something greater than chance. It was a bridge built not on fear or survival, but on trust and compassion. When he finally sat to finish his book, he titled it The Dragon's Trust. It was not only the story of saving a life. It was the story of two worlds meeting and finding common ground. A reminder that even in the vast wilderness of Mars, connections could be made that transcended boundaries. And as the years passed, Nathan never stopped finding gifts on his porch, never stopped watching the trees at dusk, never stopped remembering the day a weeping dragon brought him her child, a day that proved kindness could shape a legacy far beyond a single human life.